All right, hope everybody had a great Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. 2020 is going to be a fun year, especially for the Jeep and all that I'm doing to it. So I'm excited to keep going and keep continuing this project. So this is Jeep Update 46, and 46 is really hopefully the last video of cleaning and painting and prepping before I can really start reassembling the Jeep and put the new motor in it and all that. So there's really three things I want to do in this video. One is to clean the inside of the firewall. And the reason I want to clean the inside of the firewall is because when Pete had the Jeep painting the firewall on the outside, he welded some holes shut and some of those welds are showing through on the other side. So I'm going to hit that with a wire wheel and clean that up, clean up around where the steering column used to sit, where that gasket sits on the frame. That's kind of messy there. And then I'm going to wipe it down with some Pour 15 metal prep, and then I'm going to paint it with just some Pour 15 out of the can paint. I'm going to do it with a brush because I don't want to get any overspray on the paint. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to pull the Jeep out into the driveway, and I'm going to spray some degreaser on the underside of it, especially in the area now that you can see that you couldn't see before, with the engine being out of the Jeep, the transmission, transfer case, drive shafts. Gives you some really good visibility into that, into what's under there. And everything looks really good, it's just really dirty, and I want to paint the frame rails. And then the last thing I want to do is remove all the brake lines. So I made a decision to replace the brake lines. Really nothing wrong with them, they're just kind of old and they look 36 years old, right? So when I was looking at the frame rails, looking at how I want to clean those up and paint them, I was thinking in my head, wow, these brake lines look really bad. So I'm going to go ahead and take out all the brake lines, the factory proportioning valve, and I'll just run new brake lines. And I'm not going to film the removal of the brake lines. I'll show them to you guys once I get them all out of the Jeep. But I got to take all that out. I got to take out the proportioning valve too, because my new, the Willwood kit that I bought has the proportioning valve with it. So obviously I'm going to use the new proportioning valve with that kit. So I got to get that thing out. I've kind of looked at it. It looks a little tricky to get out, and I'll show you guys in a little bit more detail in just a second. All right, so that's the plan. Before I get into doing all that, let me show you guys why I want to. Telling you about it's one thing, I can show you. And again, it's just going to give me that peace of mind that, hey, when I put this thing back together, I did everything that I could. It's not going to be perfect, but I did everything I could to prevent a future situation with rust. And having an opportunity to clean this thing up like this shouldn't happen again once I get everything put back together. So I want to make sure and do the best that I can and make sure it's right. So let's check it out. All right, so on the inside of the Jeep here, you've got areas that he welded, and no one's fault here, but that needs to be cleaned up and addressed. So I'm not going to leave it like that because that's really just raw, unpainted metal from the welding. And got some of these all around, so there's some more there. And then of course just generally clean up this area of the Jeep. All right, let's take a look underneath the Jeep and let me show you guys what it looks like under there. All right, I'm underneath the Jeep now, and it's kind of cool to sit underneath here and just look at things. You can't do this obviously with the motor in, so let me show you the frame rails here. And it's little things like that and just kind of a layer of funk on them, and just want to try to clean this up the best I can. So this frame rail's pretty rough looking. That's from when I stripped the floor of the Jeep. All right, the other thing I noticed just looking around down here is this proportioning valve, and this is the factory proportioning valve where it's just kind of a junction block for your brakes, and that's going to regulate the pressure to the front brakes and the back brakes and make that braking force equalize that braking force out. So it's a necessary part. The problem is that my kit, my power brake conversion kit, came with a new proportioning valve, and I'm not going to need this one. One of the problems that I have with this proportioning valve is I can't seem to figure out how to get it off. Obviously there's a screw here that looks like it holds it in, and one here. But on the back side, the frame is closed. This screw is covered by the side step that I put on, and this one doesn't really seem to have a nut. It almost has like a, I don't know what it is, but I can't get it off. So I'm probably gonna cut this off and cut this off and see if it'll come off that way, because I know it's a part that I'm not going to use again. So now I've since learned this line is not a brake line, that's a fuel line, and that's your return line. So I'm not too crazy about the idea of cutting this with a cutoff wheel with all the sparks that will generate. And I got to figure out a way to get this off. So I'm going to try to pry it off with a screwdriver and see if I can just break those bolts. But I'm not sure I can. I can also try a pry bar after that if I can't get it with the screwdriver. So the proportioning valve was held on by two bolts, one there and one there. And here's what the bolts look like. And I have never seen a bolt with an end like that. Never seen one before. So I had to pry this thing off. I finally got it to pop off, and I was able to then get these off because they didn't break. And I just got them with pliers, and it took a little bit, but I got it. Once I got a good grip on them, they came right off, no problem. That is completely round, and like I said, I've just never seen a fitting like that before. All right, now that I finally got this thing out, let's put this with the other brake lines and see if we can kind of recreate what they look like when they're in the Jeep. All right, so this is my recreation of the brake lines now that they are all finally out of the Jeep. So you've got kind of the hub of everything, the proportioning valve, and you got your front left, front right. You got your two lines that come up to your brake cylinder. Then you got your rear line. That's the part that goes around the shock, meets in the middle at the flexible brake line. Then it goes down to a junction that both these attach to. That one goes in your right rear, and that's your left rear. And that's what it looks like. All right, now that the brake lines are out, now I can pull this thing out and pressure wash it and start wire wheeling down the inside of the firewall, get it ready for paint. All right, so here's the paint I'm using. Pour 15, semi-gloss black. And I just wiped down this first cross member here, and I'm just going to paint a little bit and kind of see how it goes on and see how it turns out. All right, here's just the front cross member. So I just painted this, and looks great. It's showing some brush marks. You can probably see them, but I think that'll go away as the paint dries. So I'm going to check it out and see what it looks like once it dries, just to make sure that I'm using the right brush and I don't end up with the brush marks in the paint. All right, let's hurry up and wait. All right, so that front cross member dried up pretty nice, and went ahead and painted the rest of the frame rails and the inside of the firewall there, and I think it looks great. Let's check it out. All right, here's the inside of the firewall. Everything's cleaned up, painted. Little bit different color paint than the Line-X flooring, but all that's going to be covered up either way. And here's what it looks like from the other side. So there's the front cross member painted. I've shown that before. It looks pretty much the same that it did when it was wet. And then check out these frame rails. So that's what you can see out here. I'll get up under the Jeep in just a second. And then of course this side's been painted as well. And and what a difference that makes. All right, here's the frame rails underneath the Jeep. I know the lighting's a little dark in under here, but they look really good. All right, so overall I'm pretty pleased with how this thing turned out. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's also not a frame off restoration either, where you can get to everything and, you know, actually have the frame sandblasted. So for what it is, I think it looks a lot better than it did. And again, peace of mind that I did it the right way. And you know, that Pore 15 is really a rust preventative paint, and it totally seals it up. So there's not any rust down there that I saw, but a layer of this paint's gonna help ensure that for the future. All right, so this should be the last video of the you know, the prepping and the disassembly and the cleaning and painting, and now we get to move on to some fun stuff, and that's going to be the reassembly of the Jeep with all the new parts that I've bought over the last couple of months. So stay tuned to the channel, and if you like this video, you like the content of the channel, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.